Gotta have a blooper reel.
Okay. So today we're going to talk about how the first few days of an employee starting with you can set the tone for how the employee is going to work out for you for years to come. So today for the video, we're going to do something a little bit different. So rather than me just talking alone, I've got in the studio Nathalie, who's going to grace us with her knowledge and talk about her experience about the first few days she had working for Talbot & Associates, and tell us a little bit about her story. So Nathalie, I want to maybe ask you about the first few days that you had working here, because you came on board differently than most people have.
Yep. Differently in the way I didn't have an interview. Differently in the way that I came in part-time at first just to learn how to do a tax return, and then straight into tax season. So that's definitely different. But coming in, I did come in with a little bit of knowledge on the culture before I even stepped foot in the firm. And that was because my husband worked here before I started. So I had learned a little bit from Christmas gatherings, those kind of events. And also there was the Cuba trip that I was able to attend as well.
The Cuba retreat that we had done in 2012.
Yep, that's the one. And that's when I really got to see the culture. And that just shocked me.
What was it that surprised you the most about that retreat that kind of made you go, wow, this is a reason for a second look? Yeah.
I remember attending that retreat and finding it interesting how, and I'll back it up here. So before I went to Cuba, I was working, an institutionalized organization. And so there, everything's planned for you. Everything's already regimented. Everything's already... this is the salary increase, everything is already kind of pre-planned. And I found it just strange. I would almost say strange is the word. At first is that at the firm, at that retreat, the leaders kept asking is what do you guys want to do? Where do you want to go? And that, to me, still today is a strange question. Hard to, and ask it and mean it.
Yeah. Because at that retreat, what was different from other retreats is that we had the spouses in on the retreat. So
on some of the days,
yeah, for some of the days. So some of the questions were not only what do the employees want, but what you guys want as a couple. So I think that was a little bit of a funny quirk.
Yeah, but to also, it's one thing to say that. So some people might do, or some organizations might do a retreat and ask those questions, but there's no follow through. There's no heart, or I feel like there's buy-in there. Whereas when I attended that, I was like, no, these guys really mean it. Like they're really planning with all of this in mind. I've never seen that before, and like I said, even today, it's still something that shocks me over and over again. That is the question. How does your path align with the firm's path? And that just...
Yeah. Do you remember what it was at the retreat that had you convinced that it wasn't just lip service? Was there anything that stood out to me, say, no, I know this is not just lip service. I know it's going to be, it's sincere.
It's the energy that was there, and just hanging out with the employees there, you knew very quickly that this wasn't something new to them. Because none of them were shocked by the question.
Okay. And so talking to the other people on your team, you came to realize...
Well, they weren't my team yet then.
What's that?
They weren't my team yet then.
Agreed, but you would talk to people on the team and you'd say, they're buying in. If they're buying in, it's because they know that what's being discussed is true and sincere.
Yeah. It's not just, like I said, lip service. It's not just, we're just saying this for the sake of saying it.
Okay.
It wasn't new to them.
Okay.
Right? Like, I'm the only one sitting there, my jaw on the floor going... What is happening? What are they asking? What's going on? And other spouses who I remember Sarah had set up and had commented on it, that this wasn't the first time she'd seen this, and she could attest to it as well. So it was just like, okay, this is a thing. This is how they function, which was just blew my mind.
Right. So we hired you just shortly after that, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. Not too long after that.
Yeah, so obviously, like you mentioned, is your husband had been working here for a few years prior to that. Do you recall some of the things that evolution that he's had since working here and the way he thinks or...
At that retreat, though, That's the epic story that Matt asked if he even had to go. So
Oh yeah.
he was still very new. But yeah, no, he was commenting on how it was, just not a place he's worked at before. It's very different, especially from the job he had directly prior to Talbot. It was very different.
And we were talking before we got on the interview, you were mentioning how Matt's attitude had changed over the years where he started off says, I'm going to do bookkeeping, I'm going to do bookkeeping for the rest of my life.
Yep,
and he was content with that.
Yep, I don't need more than that.
Yep, and he kind of evolved from that, hasn't he?
Yes, with a little bit of pushing at first, but I think now it's become almost, he's learned that, okay, I can try things, and there's no such thing as failure, really. If I veer off and I don't want to do it anymore, that's okay. If I give it a go and it doesn't quite work, no one's going to criticize me for this. But that's something he's had to learn for sure. Yeah, change of character there for sure.
Going from doing bookkeeping to other tasks within the firm.
Yeah.
And you went through quite an evolution in tasks as well.
Yeah, I think I've done everything except for corp work. So, I was hired initially to work with the bookkeeping team. Obviously, being hired in tax season, I did nothing but tax returns at first, which was fun. I loved the rush. Good training, good team, good everything. Just a really good experience right from the get-go, which I think defines where I stand now on why I stayed.
Right. Tell me about the first few days or training that you had for doing personal tax returns. Do you remember those days?
Yeah, I do, because I only came in a few hours here and there because I was still employed at my other job. And I had a lot of one-on-one with Kevin. He's the one that taught me how to do a tax return. Taught me taxes, period. I hadn't done a tax return before in my life. Mm-hmm. So learned a lot there. And just having someone available all the time that, just put my head up and be like, hey, do you remember where you put this credit on what form and how did this apply? And just a lot of patience. A lot of patience, understanding. He wanted me to win as much as I wanted to win, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And tell me a little bit about, because obviously you're working closely with Kevin, but you also had to work with other people within the firm. Did you find it was sometimes a bit of a challenge working with other people, or was it...
No, everyone was always so nice, so inviting. I mean, you have your initial shyness when you start at any job. You don't know... I mean, again, backing up, I knew a few of these people because of Matt. Yeah. But it wasn't... I didn't know them that much. A few gatherings here and there. Cuba, I met them a little bit, but... you still have that nervousness of, I'm not sure how to take this person, but it's always been very welcoming. I've always been able to find an answer, always kind and patient.
I'm a little bit curious, every now and then, something that always worried me, given my position as CEO of Talbot Associates, that people will see me as the guy in the ivory tower and we can't go talk to him. It's always something that I felt I had to work towards to overcome so people would not be afraid of coming to me with whatever. I sometimes feel I did a pretty good job of that, and I'd like to get your sense of what it was that you think, because I think you have always felt at ease in coming to see me with whatever. I'm curious to know what it was that made you say, no, I think he's safe.
Yeah, I think Cuba had a lot to do with it. That was my initial buy-in.
Did anything happen in Cuba for you to feel that?
Just what you were saying. At the retreat, you're just being very open, honest, welcoming of your team. You genuinely wanted to hear where they were at and how they were doing. Okay. Just that authenticity that, you weren't putting on a mask. This was you. Yeah. This is Jean-Guy. And
like take it or leave it.
Yeah, exactly. And I appreciated that. It wasn't a I got to figure this guy out, or this is who I am, and that's it. And so that helped a lot. And I do remember in kind of my transition from taxes to bookkeeping, then I had to learn how to quote on clients, and I'll never forget. That was one of my biggest conversations with you. Was I have this project I'm doing with this client, and you teaching me how not to fear value billing, I guess, is what we went on there. That was my first lesson in value billing, and it just boggled my mind to go into that subject and nervousness, right? But then you're able to say, no, this is nothing new. This is this is how you do this, and
It's funny because I've had that conversation with so many people here, but I still remember that one with you for reasons I'm not too sure why. But I think
So I was reluctant to call. You want me to call them and
yeah,
say what?
I think that's probably why I could see the fear in your eyes, and I remember being impressed with the fact you still wanted to carry it through. But it was kind of neat to feel what, and then I could tell what you were trying to get from me is that what if you fail?
Exactly.
What are the consequences?
That's what I was scared
And
of.
it was coming back to that all the time.
Because I was looking at the
What
cost.
if I fail?
I was going, okay, well, Jean-Guy, if I don't get this, and that means we're out X amount of time, and this is going to cost us. And whoa, you back it up. Yeah, you were able to calm me down and convince me like you had my back. So
Yeah.
even if I lost it all, it didn't matter. You were okay with that as long as I learned something from it. Yeah, no, that was a scary. That was probably one of my scariest days. It's just like, okay, I can do this. Breathe. But yeah, just knowing that you had a team there to back you up.
Yeah. So before we continue with the rest of the interview, if you guys could like this video and subscribe, I would really, really appreciate it. One of the things I think we pride ourselves in a lot is just the flexibility. And I think that was something for you as well that you really appealed in our firm.
Yep, flexibility is still one of the biggest things for me. And then I talk about flexibility in two ways for me. Is one, the flexibility to find myself and where I belong and what I'm good at, right? So you've let me try so many things. You know, okay, Nat, you want to try this? Let's try this. And that didn't quite work. Okay, we back it up, and then I try something else. And I never felt judged for it or like I was going to lose my job because, I was trying these things. Flexibility for my family, of course. I have a young family, so being able to juggle that every morning and you're okay with that is great.
And I think that has more value than most people think.
Yes.
I think too many times we think it's all about paying well and all of that, but in fact, it's those little things that
Depends
really
on the
make all the
person
difference. Of course, it
and
would.
what's going on in their life.
Yeah.
And you look at somebody who doesn't have a lot more responsibilities. Maybe flexibility isn't the highest thing ranking on their list.
Agreed.
But no, it is a huge thing
For
for
a
me.
lot of people, it is.
Yeah.
We talked a little bit about being genuine, and I think it's one of the things that, and I guess, and I'm not too sure where that comes from, but I was never afraid of showing my vulnerability. But I think you would have to agree, and tell me if I'm wrong, but I think there's been a lot of vulnerability that's been demonstrated by many team members here. And a lot of people will admit to struggles and all that at the firm.
Mm-hmm.
And would you agree that's become part of our culture, is that if I'm not well, it's safe to say, look guys, I'm not doing too great today?
Yeah. And I think definitely when I started, that was a big thing, is just, we're a smaller group then. As we get to be a bigger firm, I find there's more smaller groups that you'll do that, but there's always that safety zone. And the firm as a whole is going to have your back. Mm-hmm. But it's definitely a culture that it's okay to not be okay. Mm-hmm. But to also take responsibility for not being okay, right? It's like you don't want to rain on everyone else's parade while you're not all right, but you're okay to lean on them as well.
Yeah.
And there's always somebody there.
Yeah. It's something that for me has really always inspired me, is that I've had, I don't know how many people often who would say, when I left home this morning, I was really discouraged. I had this black cloud, and I got to work and life is good again. And people think that as a leader that I was always good. But that is even true for me. I don't know how many times I could say I came to work and I'm thinking, I got to lead this team. But I get to work and within an hour I was feeling pumped again. So it's unbelievably contagious. Mm-hmm. How as long as the bulk of the group is on top, it can bring everybody up to a certain level. Wouldn't you agree? Absolutely,
yeah. We have the craziest things can happen in this office sometimes. You walk in and it's unpredictable. Would be the best word I can say. You never know what's going to happen. But it's just always fun. Fun is really a part at the core of it.
Of the culture.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. So one of the things that, the reason I also want to bring Nathalie into these discussions is because we're hoping to have her do a few videos going forward where we're going to have her talk about procedures and things that she's done with this firm. So there's certain areas, especially when it gets down to the nitty gritty, Nathalie has evolved. She's said herself, done a whole bunch of different tasks within the firm. So when it comes down to the nitty gritty, she's better positioned to talk about these things than I am. So in the weeks, months, years to come, Nathalie will be providing her insight on more of the nitty gritty stuff related to parts of business and of running a practice. So I thought, well, today would be a good way to introduce her so you get a sense of what she is, what she does, and all of that. So I want to thank you, Nathalie, for joining us with this conversation. I think it was good. And again, it gives the people a sense of how within a few days, I think I dare say that you had the proper mindset to be a real team player. And for you, in your case, was the retreat in Cuba where you weren't even an employee yet, but already you had the sense of this is where I want to be and I want to become one of the team and all of that. And you had early buy-in. Well, you had buy-in even before you got hired, so which is even better. But it's a matter of setting the tone, isn't it? And then it kind of carries you and the rest of the team into the future. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. And in conclusion, if you have any questions or comments, I would really like to hear about your experiences. So either your experience as a new employee working for any organization of what it was like, what was good about it, and what wasn't so good. Because I think we all can learn from other people's experiences. So I would really like people to share their thoughts about and remembering. I remember the first day I worked for whatever company, how good it was or how bad it was and why it was so. Because I think the people looking at this video are looking for as much information they can on how to make the first day or first week of a new employee the best possible experiences by people sharing their experiences and their thoughts that will help us all in becoming better employers. So that's it for today, and we'll see you again next week.